Good day and welcome back. We begin with our next session, Truth or Dare, on the path of self publishing with Anita Satyajit, Salini Vineeth, Ketan Joshi, Nandita Godbole, moderated by Ganesh Vancheeswaran. Anita Satyajit is a writer, storyteller, and spiritual facilitator. She is the self published author of the Isapuram Tales books, which is often called India's first spiritual fiction for children. A nature lover, she loves exploring our inner and outer worlds to better connect herself and others to our joy, peace, and ease. When not writing, teaching, or dancing, she can be found deep in thought, plotting ways to overcome her chocolate addiction. Salini Vineeth is a fiction and freelance writer based in Bangalore. She quit her engineering job in 2018 to pursue writing full time. She has self published four books and contributed to several anthologies. Her short stories have appeared in the Bangalore Review, the Bombay Review, and Kitab, among others. Her debut novel is due to release in 2023. Ketan Joshi is a biker, backpacker, and travel writer. He is the author of 20 books, including the Three Men on Motorcycle series, the One Man Goes Backpacking series, and many more. Ketan has traveled to the Arctic and Antarctic to over 50 countries and to all seven continents. Nandita Godbole. Nandita is a cookbook and fiction author with several titles to her name, writing books that improve a diner's perception about Indian food and shows how effortless and healthy it can be. Ganesh Vancheeswaran. Ganesh is a catalyst for people's self expression. He believes all of us have the strong urge to express ourselves impactfully, one way or another, through our work, our knowledge, our achievements, our ideas and thoughts, our life stories, etc. As a person branding coach and speaker, writer, book coach and editor, voiceover artist, and scriptwriter for corporate films, this is what he helps people and organizations do. Ganesh is the author of numerous books. I would request Ganesh Vancheeswaran to begin this enticing conversation.
Thank you so much. Thanks for that wonderful introduction, Renu. Hi, folks.
Hi,
Hi,
good to see you.
Nandita is not with us so far, but we'll still start. We'll start and hope that she joins soon. So great to have you all here. And hi to all our viewers, all our listeners. So we have a nice session on self-publishing lined up for you, and seasoned authors who've had their intense brushes with self-publishing. They're going to open up and they're going to talk about their journeys, their experiences, the decisions, the highs, the lows, and I'm going to be asking them about the blunders they made too. So you can hear about all this now. So I'll start with you, Anita, and just so that our listeners, viewers can uh, understand where you come from and what kind of writing you do. Could you just talk about your themes? The pet themes, especially the Isapuram tales. Could you very briefly tell us about that and tell us what the cornerstone of those stories are and what impelled you to write about them?
So, actually, Ganesh, my background was in writing and journalism, as you know, but over the years, it's moved to spirituality. I found myself on the spiritual path. And so, a lot of my writing now reflects that and is tuned to that direction. So, the Isapuran Tales in particular just came about in terms of I wanted to communicate what I had learned in my own journey of self discovery. How do you share that with children? So that was the whole intent. And there was no
Right,
plan. The story is just seemed to came
we're
about. I
losing
started
you,
writing
Anita. Your
of
voice
all
is
these.
breaking, I think.
Uh,
Okay.
oh, okay. Some net problem. I'm sorry. Can you hear me now?
No, you're okay now. Yeah. Go on, please.
Yeah. So I think the stories basically deal with themes like oneness of all faith. It deals with looking at your own emotions, managing your mind, managing your things, but they're all in terms of a conversation with the child and
Okay.
the child's neighbor, a spiritual teacher whom is known as Baba, one of the characters of the story. So a lot of my writing, Isapuram Tales, is where I started off with in terms of books, and I decided to go the self-publishing route, though I had a contract with a publisher. And even the next book that is going to come out this month is again short spiritual fiction, which I'm again intending to self publish. Because I think in this
This,
genre, self publishing seems to be a great route to go about it. When you speak about,
this also,
topics that are
sorry,
not generally accepted.
this book that is coming up now is also meant for children, mainly aimed at children.
No, no, no. It's for adults. So
Ah,
a different, completely target
okay,
audience for this.
okay,
So I don't categorize myself as a children's writer. It's in
right.
terms of writing just what comes in, and then
Mm-hmm.
wherever it goes that way. So this is
Nice,
again,
nice.
there's about 365 short stories divided into three books. So 120, 120, and the rest each. So that's how it's
So
going to
it's
be.
like this: you write
16
what
short
you
stories.
write. It's for the readers to understand and to figure out whether they're children or adults or whatever, and pick up what they want. Right? Let them figure it
Some
out.
of the best feedback for Isapuram Tales has been from parents who have loved it.
Okay.
And they
Okay.
keep saying that, it's awesome, for us to read it about. It helps us revise so many things in our life. So,
Yeah.
yes, I
Yeah.
call the book from 7 years to 99 years now.
Nice. Salini, tell us about your themes. What are you writing about, and what are you some of your books?
Yeah, so I have started writing in English in I think around 2018 only. So before I was writing in Malayalam, my mother tongue. So most of
Yes.
my stories are from urban settings actually. So as a person, I have always lived in urban settings from my childhood. So most of my themes actually inspired from the everyday living. In fact, one of my books are titled is Everyday People.
Mm-hmm.
So the ordinary things that we see in urban life, the
Right.
city life, that
Right.
fascinates me actually. So
Right.
most of my themes actually inspired from that. Most of my
Mm-hmm.
stories are set in cities,
Mm-hmm.
if I think about it now. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I'm mostly fascinated by the people around me and how, especially the people in cities, and being in a crowded city, how you still feel lonely, and
Right.
so all those emotions, which I think a lot has been talked about people, in the exotic settings, but the settings
Yeah.
in metros and people who live mundane lives that
Right.
seem like mundane lives. There is nothing special about it. So I really love to dig into that and show the world that it's no life is mundane actually.
Yeah.
There
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
there is a story everywhere. So
Right.
that's the the basic setting in my novels, and the upcoming novel which will hopefully release in 2013 2023, which I am going to self publish again. It's also in an urban setting, very much in an urban
Mm.
setting.
So you
So
draw from everyday life, and I think there is
exactly,
a lot actually happening if you were to look closely, in the interstices of
exactly,
our everyday life. There's a lot of
exactly.
it's teeming with energy, it's teeming with
Yeah,
thoughts, the highs and lows, the frustrations, the anxieties.
yeah.
Yeah, nice, very interesting. Um, Ketan, you spend more of your time outside home, right? Your themes are
Yes,
all
yes.
about the outdoors and all very exploratory, right? It's for the traveler in you. So tell us about that. What is the connection and what impelled you to write about these themes?
So great to I'm
There's
We can't hear you. We just can't hear you. Um, can you say something? Hi. The internet connection has snapped, or have you pressed your mute button by mistake? Which has gone totally silent. Hi, Nandita. Welcome. Hi.
Hi, sorry about the delay.
Array, no problem. No problem.
Uh, are
We
we
just
not?
waited. No, so we started a few minutes back, and
No, no, no. I realized that. Yes, yes, yes.
yeah,
I'm here.
and Ketan was in full flow, and he's kind of caught. The internet
Can you hear me
connection
now?
seems. Oh, you're back.
Am
You're
I
back.
audible?
Yes.
Go back.
Yes, you are, sir. Go
Cool,
on.
cool.
Yes, we were talking about your themes,
Yeah.
and you write about exploring and travel a lot.
Yeah, so I actually started out writing fiction.
Mm-hmm.
And so the first couple of books, 3 books I published was fiction. And then I sort of left it. And then when I started traveling in a big way, I took up motorbiking at a fairly late age. And then I sort of, like all late infatuations, it, just carries it away. So I
Yeah.
became a very avid motorbiker. And
Right.
then I started blogging about it, and then people liked it. So then it, by natural growth, it became a book because using my fiction writing experience, I could make an interesting story out of it. And the travel itself is fascinating. So if you mix in the reason why you travel, you've been to a place. A lot of,
Yes.
if you see a magazine article, it's just a listing. I went to a place XYZ. But why did you go to place XYZ? What is the historical significance? What is the stories associated? What funny people did you meet? What
Yeah.
adventures or misadventures did you have? So if you put it all together, then it becomes an interesting narrative. So it becomes a very a real experience. Why did you travel? What is the fun of travel? So that is what I started writing. And then the first book was well received, so I wrote another one, then another one, then another one, and then so on and so forth. So actually, I traveled so much that I have written only a fraction of what I've been to.
Right.
But already it's quite a number of books, and so it's more a celebration of why we travel, what is the fun of travel, that kind of stuff.
Right. Nandita, on the other hand, is a landscape architect turned writer. So tell us very briefly about that. This is what we've all been discussing. And more than that, I'd like to hear about the pet theme, right? So your bonding with food and with cooking and presenting Indian food in a slightly different light than it's been presented. So what's been your connection with these themes? Can you expand on that?
Absolutely, it's a very long story, so
Yeah, so cut it short. Give us
totally
a short
short.
version of it. Absolutely.
Absolutely, worse than the Cliff Notes version.
Give us the trailer.
Yes, I have always been interested in food. I've come from a family of people who were chefs or had a restaurant and things like that. But the worlds collided in terms of my interest, because I was always interested in how people were using the place that they were in, or how they connected or bonded to that. One of the critical parts about Indian cuisine is that we really are connected to the place. So, we have regional cuisines, but we don't really understand how much connection we have with it until we are far away from it. So that happened over time when I moved to the States for studies at first, and I was always missing home food, etc. And then one thing led to another, and 20 years down the road, I wouldn't say 20, I'd say about 15 years down the road, from having moved to the States for studying and career, etc., I started finding myself actually explaining to people about food and about our cultural significances and the nuances of one
The
another.
influences.
Yes, of course. Why is North Indian food different from South Indian food, and why is it, like the Southwest is a little different than the Southeast, the little nuances of that.
Right.
And found myself being able to communicate that better than other people. And that moment, it was just that. And that took me on a path to self-publishing. Actually, before that, I was showcasing our food. Like, I was hosting dinner parties and stuff, and people were like, you need to give us your recipes, and they were not finding those recipes. And so, again, you find a niche of interest meets your talent or whatever. Someone is there to help you kind of visualize your
Yeah.
vision and put it
Right.
in place. And that got me into thinking about writing a book,
Writing book.
dreaming about writing a book. And from there, was like many of my co-panelists. It was one book first, and then that's
That led to another and to another and to
kind of
5 other
goes
books.
on. So
Yeah,
so
very,
now
very
we're I'm working on book number 7,
number
which is
7.
mind-boggling that I did not have the idea that I would write 6 books prior. But working
Right.
on book number 7, I have written one novel in there. It's a biofiction kind of novel. That was another massive project. But everyone has taught me something different about not only the passion that I have about food, but how people actually interpret that and where that journey goes. So
Right.
that's the nutshell, snapshot
That's the
version.
trailer. Thank you very much. Very interesting. And I think a common thread is that all of you here didn't imagine, in one sense or the other, that you would ever be writers, and professional writers and serial writers. So one book leading to another, even one book possibly never seemed, it was never on your horizon at one point of time. I can see that's a common thread. And here you are. You're on book number 7. Shalini is writing her next book. Ketan has already got 20 on his belt. Anita has got a few. Excellent. So I think it's a beautiful way to now talk directly about self-publishing, because I think this is at the heart of the power of self-publishing. Somewhere in all your stories, that has been a big factor, right? Helping you move from one book to another, and for each one of you to continue to be authors, right? Not write a book and then give it up. You do have the
Yeah.
agency, you have the power. I think that's a big factor in keeping you going as an author. So let's talk about
Yeah.
that. Shalini, we'll start with you. So the question is the same for all of you. Your brush with traditional publishing, if at all, did you ever attempt it? And just briefly tell us about that. And the question is, therefore, why and under what circumstances did you decide to self-publish?
Okay. Yeah, thank you, Ganesh. So, yes, I started with self publishing. Just give me a second. So, my daughter wanted to have a look at what is going on here.
I
So,
think she also wants to self-publish a book, which is good.
of course, of course. Anyway, so yeah, my first book was like when I started, when I started writing, I was not much aware about the publishing industry as such, because I was not about aware of the traditional publishing, self-publishing. I didn't have that kind of an idea like, okay, there are two streams or whatever you say. Then I just wrote the book. It was a novella, and I knew that okay, there is something called Kindle Direct Publishing, and it's very easy because being from an engineering background, I always found these technical things easier to grasp. So I just went and I published my first book. I was not even I still remember, wondering like, okay, how do I now? I got a book. How do I get the reviews? Because I have no
Mhm.
idea like where the reviews happen and how it happens, who does it,
Right,
etc. So
right.
from there, yeah. So that was just me and the computer and the Kindle Direct Publishing portal. There is nothing in
Mhm.
between, to be honest.
Mhm.
And it
Mhm.
was published, and I was happy. And yeah, after like slowly I dipped my toes into the publishing industry, and I realized that there is like all these traditional publishers are there, how to pitch to them. So for the
Right.
past, yeah, for I did have a brush with the traditional publishing like last 1.5 years.
Mhm.
I wanted to try out like how it works. So I tried to pitch my novel, and but it didn't, unfortunately it didn't work out till now, at least. But yeah, I realized there is a lot of difference between self-publishing and traditional publishing, and there are like what are the advantages, comparison between the both. What are the advantages
Right.
and disadvantages?
Right.
So, but I think yeah, maybe we'll come to that later. But
Yes.
so to start with, my initial book was self-published, and the second book I didn't even think about it. I just went ahead and self-published it, and there was a lot of ecosystem I learned during the process actually. And during my search for the traditional publisher, I just wanted to experiment because I really love exploring things. So I wanted to experiment with the traditional publisher. So I learned a lot about them as well. So
Mhm.
I can say that has not been a waste. I learned a lot. So probably we
Yes.
could, get into that later at a later point, probably. So
Yes. Yes. You're right. Right. Ketan, how's it been for you?
Yeah,
Your first book
I
was published by Macmillan, right? Your first book.
yeah. So in fact, before so the Macmillan book was actually a sort of business book. Is it okay if I show the book? So
Yeah. 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 Of course.
this
Of
one
course.
was yeah. So
Okay.
this was a book published by Macmillan. So before
Right.
that, I told you I was writing fiction. So I spent a lot of time hammering on the doors of publishers, and it's a very demeaning process. It's I mean, that whole funda of pitching and then sending manuscript, it has to be double spaced and loose leaf
Right.
format, and don't call us, we'll call you. And it is all a very disgusting process.
And having to
So then
wait and the uncertainty and all that.
wait for months and months, and and then that don't call
Right.
us, we'll call you is like highly disrespectful. So I didn't like it at all. Even if
Right.
the book did get published, you have no agency in the whole matter, right? So this kind of
Right.
cover is like the shittiest cover that you can think of. So when
Mm-hmm.
it made me lose interest in publishing and talking to publishers directly. So when I discovered Kindle, it was like fun. You can do whatever you want. It's like, whether
You could
one
play
copy
with it.
sells or no copy sells, nobody cares. It's great fun. So for example, this is the cover. So this is much. Can you see it? It's much more
Yeah.
fun, right? So it's and this is like completely DIY stuff. So this image was drawn by a friend of mine. The cover was designed on Canva.
Right.
The book was uploaded on KDP. Even when it was published as a print book, that also you create your own manuscript, you create the cover.
Right.
It's the kind of self power that you get out of it is amazing.
Yeah.
And when it comes to numbers, today I was just looking at some numbers. So 300 million self-published books are sold each year, and out of which, out of all ebooks sold, 30% are self-published.
Yeah.
So whatever falls between the cracks of what the publisher and the editorial team thinks, I have no quarrel against the editorial team. They are making a business decision, so they have to do what they think is right. It's great.
Right.
But what this enables is that you don't need to depend on the vagaries and mindset of
Of somebody else.
that business of somebody
Yeah.
else. That business, you put it up. If it's good, it will sell. If it's not good, it will not sell. Okay, great. Move on to the next one. Second thing is the speed of the process. If you want to publish a
Right.
book with a publisher, it takes roughly a year and a half per book.
Yeah.
The cycle
Yeah.
is a year. So by the time you clear the manuscript, editing, cover design, copy editing, blah 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 blah, release, the whole cycle is, let's say, minimum a year. Now I
Right.
write like 5 books a year. I cannot wait for these guys to triple out their work. So
Right.
I can publish some. There are and in fact I'm a slow author as compared to other people publish like a book a month. So
Right.
it gives you a lot of control, a lot of freedom, and like you said rightly, if you get success, then you are encouraged to write more and more.
Correct. Right. Nice. Interesting. Anita, tell us about your, why you decided to self-publish and what's kept you going in that. Can you hear me? Your image is frozen. I think you still have the internet problem. All right, so we'll take Nandita. Why don't you go? You represent a very different kind of model, and I see. I've always felt that, like I said when we were speaking a few days back, from the days self-publishing started, in 2007 and 8 with Kindle coming in the USA and all that, it's come such a long way, and I think your model is representative of that long way, of how far it has come. So, crowdsourcing, I find it very interesting. So tell us about that. First
Yeah,
of all, the question is no. First, the question is, why did you decide to self-publish? Under what circumstances?
yeah, actually, absolutely. I was egged on by a friend who was in, she's long past, but she was in the food space, and she saw my work, and she had egged me on, saying, "Nandita, your work is really amazing. It's unique. We are missing this in the food space. We're missing this in the publishing space. Why don't you reach out and talk to a publisher?" I had not even thought about writing a book at that point. I was just doing this for fun, exploring, etc. And when someone puts that bug in you and you don't realize that, that's kind of your buried passion, it was the spark.
Then
So
it
I did.
ignited.
Go ahead. You did you have a
No,
question?
I just said it ignited. I said it.
Yes, it ignited that passion that you didn't realize it was there in you. And I explored the process of it. I reached out to a few agents, and I said, I don't have the manuscript written. I mean, it's a cookbook. Most times when you're trying to reach out to a publisher, or even an agent, actually, in this case, the pathway is a little bit different. You find an agent first who will then pitch your book to the publisher. For an agent to
Right.
take me on, I had not written a single word of my cookbook. I had not been in the food space before that they knew about or cared about. I had been written about before. And they were completely like blindsided in the sense that here's this person who we're not even know that she exists on this planet for this purpose in this industry.
Right.
She wants to
Right.
write books. I was a total newbie. And basically, they said, we're really sorry. We cannot take you on. You have no street cred.
No
I mean,
credentials.
to put it plainly. And that was, kind of sobering because, yes, at that point, I didn't have any street cred. But at the same time, I was like, okay, now how do I go around this bend? You know? And y- people said, oh, if you want, you can publish your own book. And the way I wanted to do it, it wasn't an ebook. I had not thought about ebooks as being the outlet for it. I was assuming it would be a print book. I'm not,
Okay.
as much as I have ebooks, that's not my
Right.
primary medium. It's not my favorite medium. So, anyways, went through the process of trying to discount out, what are the options, and stumbled into crowdfunding, which, it's crowdfunding, meaning that, a whole group of people interested in a project are pitching towards and helping you make that dream happen. And they are
Right.
providing you, with the seed money, essentially, to make the book. So that was my first book. And unlike, what we think about in terms of putting a book together, this one I deliberately chose a model through the Kickstarter platform, which basically said it's all or nothing. So either you get all the funds that you want, or you get nothing. You don't get a dime. And knowing that gave me a lot of confidence, because I was like, okay, I won't need to put in my all of my money towards this
Right.
project. Other people are there. There are people who are prepaying for this book.
Correct.
At least we can make it happen. That process is a whole, two whole sessions of its own, because you still have to pitch. You're
That's
still
true.
pitching to an unknown audience. They're not the editors, or they're not a publishing house, but are your core readers who are actually going to either choose to read your work or not. And that made a huge difference, because for a newbie with no street cred, with nothing on my plate to show someone that they recognize and affiliated with, hey, I was not on this or that, I had my funding in 72 hours of that book.
Wow.
And it was like mind blowing that people from all over the world, and it wasn't just America. I mean, it wasn't just one corner of the, and trust me when I say this, 5% of that group was my friends. Everybody else is people I didn't know.
Strangers.
And that process just gave so much confidence. So that was book number one, and that started the journey that's taken me on so many years now. So
And ever since you've stuck to the same model, right? You've used
I have,
Kickstarter
because it
and
is
crowdfunding.
absolutely, because I find that it is it reaches a core set of people, number one, who understand that and of course they have seen my work through previous books, so they understand, okay, whether I they can go and look at my previous campaigns, they can go and look at how it happened, and it just sits with that. Outside of that, like now, if I go and even approach an agent, who I know, agents who specifically do cookbooks, they're like, okay, Nandita, why do you need us? Tell us that. It is not about what can we do for you and we're holding all the cards. I control that process
Yes,
tremendously,
yes,
down to
yes.
the last full stop, or the last period that you put in a sentence.
Right, right.
And that's a different feeling to come into book
Absolutely.
publishing.
Yes, yes. No, if they're asking you what can we do for you, or why do you even need us, I think you're in a great position, boss.
uh,
I mean, that's
it,
we'd all love to hear that. Why do you need us? So,
no, I
no,
mean,
it's
we do
good.
need them. We do need them. Don't get me wrong, but it is
No, I'm
more.
not saying that. I'm
Yeah,
I'm,
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
I'm just reflecting the sense of the empowered feeling you have, and you've slogged your butt off, to come this way,
Oh,
and it's a great place to be.
like nobody's business. Every book is different. Every book has taught me something about the publishing space.
Right,
But
right.
at the end of the day, you really have to look at whatever we are producing as it's reaching a consumer, it's reaching a reader, it's reaching someone who is interested in your work. And it's not
Yes.
dictated by a larger a larger, semi old fashioned way structure, and that gives a lot of confidence to new writers, to new voices. And sometimes it's
Yes.
easier to ignore those voices because, oh, you don't have X, Y, and Z, or you don't have this kind of a standing in the space. So if you have the community support, which is what crowdfunding really just gives you off the bat, even before you've put in the first piece of
Write the
work,
first word.
um, that's just like getting a primed audience, so to speak.
Correct.
And
Correct.
they test you. So don't get me wrong, they do test you, but it's just the same amount of work, or perhaps even more, that you would do with crowdfunding or with even self-publishing than a traditionally published book would be. So if you're ready for the work, do it.
Right. Anita, how's it been for you? Why and under what circumstances? Why self-publishing?
I basically had a contract with a children's book publisher, but we had a lot of vision differences. I realized that my whole intent for the book and vision for the book was very different. They wanted something very glamorous and glossy, and I wanted a price range that it can go to every hand, basically. So we parted
Affordable
ways
for
very
everyone.
amicably. Yeah, so we parted ways very amicably, and it just seemed like it was the most sensible thing to do at that point of time. Just go ahead and publish it myself. And I was like, fine. I already knew a lot about publishing. I knew a lot about
Did we lose her?
Mm,
Yeah, yeah.
can't hear you again. What a pity, yeah.
Yeah.
Something really wrong with your internet, I think. Internet connection. Can you just shout out loud enough so that we can avoid the internet?
Vijayan.
Is it, um,
Can you hear me? I can hear you all. That's why.
Oh,
yeah, yeah, all right, all right. And even if your
Yeah,
video
yeah.
freezes, it's okay as long as we have your audio. Yeah,
Yeah,
go on.
yeah, yeah. I think. I mean,
But the
it
problem is
doesn't.
your audio
Don't
also
bother.
stops. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I'm having a really bad. I think my community is having a lot of internet issues from yesterday, so just can't do anything. I've been moving from room to room anyway. So yeah, getting back. So it's basically it was a more sensible thing to do at that point of time, and it was a crazy idea because no one does self-publishing for children's literature. It felt at that point of time, and it was a big gamble. It worked because the experience was beautiful. It didn't work because the book came in Jan and COVID came in March. So the timing was just
Oh,
really bad. And
right.
I think we lost.
Yeah. Okay, so I think we'll move on because yeah, we've lost her again. Okay, some key decisions that you took, and can you speak about the very critical ecosystem? The writers are, very often we feel isolated. Very often there is this inner journey, complete uh, the cutting off that we undertake naturally as a process, and then there is a lot of work that goes into the self work, self publishing, that world, that whole journey. So keeping this in mind, uh, please tell us about the ecosystem. Please tell us about the critical support factors one needs to keep in mind if one has to be bring out a book on one's own. Shalini, you want to go first, or maybe Ketan for a change? Why don't you go first?
Yeah. So the fun answer in this is there is no need for any ecosystem whatsoever. You can be
You are
completely
the
on your own.
ecosystem, huh? In other words.
You are the ecosystem. See, it depends. It depends. Okay, let me just clarify my answer. So there is an ecosystem in place of all the services that a publishing house does for you. So what does a publishing house do for you? First of all, it helps you in editing and getting
Yeah.
your manuscript in place. Secondly, it helps in paginating and making a proper layout of the manuscript. Thirdly, it helps in the cover creation tools. So basically, to
Right.
make a nice and attractive cover, it helps you in blurb creation and marketing. Basically, whether you what kind of marketing you want to do. It helps you in getting reviews, getting sales, getting connecting with book reviewers. So all of these there
Distribution.
are distribution is not okay. So now there are two types of
Oh,
self-publishing.
yeah.
So one
Okay, you can
is
keep that.
purely
Yeah.
online and one is
Right.
print. So
Right.
for all of these, there are professional. There's a very very beautiful professional ecosystem available. So you can go to
Right.
Fiverr or you can go to So Fiverr is the simplest, but there are any number of self-publishing outfits which help you in doing all of this. So these are all there. So if you lack competency in any of these, you can go there. However, you don't need any of them. You can do it all on your own if you have a little bit of technical awareness and
Right.
you're willing to, just roll up your sleeves and wade in and see what
Wade into it.
happens. Yeah. So you can editing is your call if you think that you are a competent enough editor. Self editing is tough. It's very tough. You uh, you can literally you start hating the sight of that manuscript once you've been through it 10 times trying to polish it and clean it. This shit, I'm reading this again and again. But if you can do it, you don't need an external editor. And especially in my style. So I am not a trained writer. I am not a business guy. I'm an MBA and I'm a corporate guy. So I never
Corporate
learned
guy.
journalism or writing, anything like that. And frankly, I don't want to. Because I think all the writers, they sort of come out in a cookie cutter kind of thing. And they're anyway, never mind. So my judgment, my judgment is neither here nor there. This point is, I don't want to write like those guys. I like to write in my own style, which
That's
is slightly different. And I am not sure whether an editor would be able to understand it, gel with it, and help you develop that unique style, which is what gives the books their appeal. So
Right.
if you can do editing yourself, great. Self-pagination is a breeze because Kindle helps you. You just make your app. You just make your manuscript in either a professional tool like Scrivener, or you just make it in Word and you publish it in up to KDP, and they'll convert it into a MOBI file. And the advantage of an ebook is that it has to flow across formats, right? Whether you're reading it on a mobile phone or a Kindle device or a tab or a computer, it has to reflow itself. It is a
Yes.
repaginate itself. So you don't want
Yes.
it to be too hard and fast. So that is the fun of it. You just leave it be, and the
Right.
automated tools will take care of it. As far as cover creation is concerned, if you like, you can develop your own covers because of online tools like Canva and all. You can either buy images or you can draw your own images. Like I draw my own images, so half of them are done by friends, or the rest of them are done by me. So if you have, and it's a challenge, right? It's great fun. It's a project. You're doing it yourself.
Yes. Yes.
And
Yes.
then it comes to marketing. Now, with marketing, essentially what you want to do is Facebook and Amazon. And if you're really active, then you can do Twitter or whatever. And you can do YouTube, you can do a podcast, you can do literally anything.
Yep.
All of this can be done by the ecosystem if you lack the necessary skills. Or you can do it alone. That is the fun of it. You can.
Right.
It's either or. It's not.
Yeah.
It's not a one size fits all. You can do whatever you want. That's the
Right.
fun of it.
Or you could do some
And
of these by
obviously-
yourself and then depend on somebody else.
Yeah.
Professional.
So whatever you're comfortable with, do with it and outsource the rest. And obviously, your biggest ecosystem is your readers.
Yeah.
So the fun of self-publishing is that your readers become your friends. You
Yes.
open up your social media to them. They will talk to you on a one-on-one. They'll tell you that
That's
they
right.
liked your books, how much it connected with them. They'll some
Yeah,
very
yeah.
very. I had intense emotional responses from readers. I loved this, or it reminded me of this. My father used
A
to work
particular
here
incident.
and he died, and the way you had described it brought it alive for me. And then so we are not professionals who need to be shielded, at least I am not. The big guys might be. But then you can have it. So those guys become your own, they become an extended ecosystem.
They're part of
And
your
they'll
team.
hopefully
in a
go
sense.
out and-
Yes.
They're part of your team, they're part of your group. So some ecosystems develop over time, some you can rent or buy, and some you don't need at all. You can just do these things. The automated systems are so good today, and many of them are free. Most of them are free. I don't pay for anything. I use only free resources. I bought Scrivener software. That's it. You don't need to buy Scrivener software. You can use it on Google Docs, which is completely free. But
Anita,
the
how
point
do
being
you do it? Sorry. Yeah, you want to add something? No. I wanted to hear from
No,
Anita.
the
but you
point
can
I
go
was
on.
making, the point in a nutshell is that self-publishing has no barriers.
Yes.
You can do it completely on your own.
Anita, what about you? So he represents the DIY end of the spectrum. But we're talking about the ecosystem and the kind of professional support that you've drawn from that has added value to your books. But tell us about what you do. How do you do this?
For a children's book, there is no other option. You need like Illustrator, you need a professional system, right? You need a whole setup. So over there, I have used, and I ensure that my books are edited by another friend of mine who's an editor. So it kind of creates that.
A professional editor, right? Ah, we lost
So,
you. Gosh, is there no place in your house where you get this internet signal? Very strong signal. We lost you again.
Professional
Okay.
editor,
So,
because it's easy to
you're
fall in
back.
love with my own words, right?
Yeah, it is. That it is.
Oh,
Mm.
now we're having trouble with Ketan
All
also.
right, it's very jumpy. Okay, Nandita, you want to tell me about your ecosystem because that's you do end up doing a lot by yourself, but
Yeah,
still, and in the crowdsource model, how does that work? Who
yeah.
is it that adds value to your books? Who all?
Uh, I
Okay, am I back?
oh, okay. Do we want a minute with Anita?
I'm sitting right next to the Wi-Fi now. If I don't get it here, I won't get it anywhere. So I don't can't do anything
Okay.
now. So
Uh,
yes, like I was saying, that it is you do need a professional system and a professional setup, especially if you're trying to do children's book. But for my next book now, which is coming up, I'm completely doing it the DIY way. So I have a friend
On
who's
your
an
own.
artist, and I'm on my own. So I'm going to use Kindle Create, and my friend is an artist. I've got a painting from her. We're trying to create the cover together. Again, but yes, editing is, I still feel that's something that helps to have a different perspective. So if there's somebody
Right.
else who's an editor to kind of, get the stories edited. So that I have gotten professionally edited, but rest of the stuff I'll be just doing it on my own. It just seemed to make more sense. And
Right.
I love
And
putting myself in spots which feel difficult. So push myself, to do it a little bit.
and then
Yes.
extricate yourself from that.
Yes.
Very nice. Uh, because you mentioned editing, and that's been on my mind. I'm coming from the widespread notion, and because I edit a lot of books myself, I see that I have to educate a number of authors about the need for editing. A number of them. Many others understand that by themselves, but with some of them, at least, there is the need for this conversation, right? So, what is the importance of editing? Just because you can publish your book and develop all of these and tools are available, does it really mean that editing is not necessary? What kind of value does a professional editor add? Keeping quality in mind, keeping reader experience in mind. Would you just, what are your thoughts?
can I add to that, Ganesh? Can I answer your question there?
Of course.
Yeah,
Yes, please.
I it depends on your relationship with the editor. That relationship is very important in order for your book to make sense to the reader, and you have to find a good editor. Depends. It all depends on your budget. Editors, they do. They do bring a lot of value to your work because they are looking at not just whether there is an errant comma or there's an extra space or there's whether the text flows properly. They're actually going to ask you for input on q and like on your paragraph where the paragraph a relates to paragraph b and what is the point. End of the day they will ask you this really blunt question of what the heck is the point of you rambling on for 4 pages on this topic
Yeah.
if I can't figure out where I'm going with it, and at the end of those 4 pages do I reach the conclusion? So
What are you saying?
what are you saying, in not so many words, and and you really have to find that relationship with someone who can be that good editor, who can be that good voice for you
Right.
as the author, because like Ketan said, you do fall in love with your own words and you think you're the greatest thing that ever happened on
It
this
was shown on earth.
great earth, and you just are enamored with, oh my god, how beautiful my words are flowing, and then someone looks at it and goes, that makes no sense. Can you back up this wagon a little
Right.
bit? Um,
Right.
uh,
More.
yeah, and particularly, like, it's one thing to write prose and to write fiction or to write stories. What I've discovered is that with cookbooks, there's a lot of things that just happen in my head but don't actually translate onto the paper, and I will just assume that the reader understands it. And for this purpose, and I hope he's on the call, I have taken the help in terms of, and this goes back to your earlier question about ecosystems and about having those trusting
Yep.
people in your ecosystem, is
Right.
I give the manuscript, every chapter goes to my husband. He loves to
Excellent.
cook. but he's a total, like, he loves to actually find fault with things. Hi honey. But he will actually read the sentence and go, you know ये मुझे समझ नहीं पड़ रहा है. I hope you all understand a little bit of Hindi, because he was like, no, I don't understand this. And you frustratingly work through and pound through those problems where you feel comfortable sharing your frustration about the text, and you
Right.
are able to fine tune it to where it is not only beautiful to read, but it also makes sense to the reader who is coming in completely cold and has no idea what's going on in your head. So, book like mine, like this was my last one. If this book is going out to somebody, I'm not there to guide them hand and say, okay, by the way, on this pan, you have to do
Yeah.
X, Y, and Z steps. I'm not giving them the instructions in person. They have to rely on this, and to have that impartial, completely filterless relationship with my editor, I can basically assume that anything I put out is going to be understood clearly by the reader,
Correct.
and that
Yes.
is the tool that they are going to enjoy using, which is why I have success in with my readers. A lot of my readers are have purchased my books before, and they're coming
Right.
back and they're like, no, I understand this woman's process. I'm going to stick with this. I know she's not going to mince words about about this technique. And so that editorial relationship, whatever, with whomever you build, is essential. I did hire a professional editor once, and I realized that they were professional editors, but they were not in the same genre as me. And so they only were able to correct the text and, kind of give me grammatical corrections, but not so much as the actual meat of it,
Yeah.
the soul of
On
what
your
you
concepts and
write.
the recipes and the food itself.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, the soul of what you write is so
Yeah.
much there within those paragraphs, and it's,
Right.
yeah, Grammarly can tell me whether I'm writing well or not. I don't need that person to tell me that. I need the person to question why those two sentences should even exist. So,
Yeah.
that's where I see the value of having an editor.
Excellent. Shalini, I want to ask you a question we just have about 11 or 12 minutes left, and there's so much to talk about. And, each one of these threads, you can just keep unraveling them, forever. But, well, time is short, and that's more the pity. But, Shalini, I want to ask you about this. We spoke about, and I know this is close to your heart, something you feel strongly about. Uh, what kind of quality are we seeing today in the self-publishing world, from the days when this emerged as as something, as a new model to fix problems with traditional publishing? We've come a long way, right? So there's,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
we've been discussing, there are lots of models, lots of voices, a lot of authors writing about an enormous variety of subjects and themes and
Yes.
all of that, right? So given that we've come a long way, there's a lot of creativity here, there's a lot of variety here. What do you feel about quality, and who do you write for? Who do you write
Yeah.
for? What's your QC? Who's your ultimate QC parameter?
Okay, so I'll address the first question quickly. So I think in self-publishing, like it's not like it's a spectrum of quality. You cannot say like it's you cannot just pinpoint and say this is the quality of self-published books, because there are like self-published books of high quality which is par with any traditional publishers, and even I can confidently say some of them are better than traditional published books, because the author has put a lot of heart and soul into it, and the author has a lot of
Effort.
freedom which reflects in their books and the writing. So there is a lot of
Right.
high quality books, and it's actually a spectrum. So there is both ends of the spectrum. So if you go
Right.
into Kindle and just if you go into Amazon and just do a search for, say, romance novels, you would get a volume of books, or romance, for that matter, anything. So romance, I'm saying, because it's a popular genre, and there is both end of the spectrum are there actually. So there are lots and lots of high quality books being published in self publishing, and unfortunately there are a lot of books which are not par with the quality which a reader would expect. So I think that comes with the freedom of freedom that self publishing gives you. So some of the
Yeah.
writers
Yeah.
choose to discipline themselves and to work towards getting a best quality output, whereas maybe some of them don't want to do that much. So it depends on how much the author wants to do, and that is the freedom and responsibility of self-publishing. So
The
if somebody
responsibility.
wants
That's
to
right.
work hard and to bring out a book that is par with the traditional publishing, the best book of the year, they can
Right.
absolutely do it with self-publishing. There are no gatekeepers, no restriction for your creativity,
No
your level
barriers
of
for all this.
commitment in self-publishing. And on the other end of the spectrum, you can absolutely publish anything. So that's it. And for me, like you asked me about for whom I write. So I just imagine, so being an engineer and being a technical person, I imagine, unfortunately I don't know whether everybody will agree with it, I imagine the book as a product, and somebody buys it and they read it, they spend their time, their money, they are investing in it, so you are supposed
Right.
to give them the value for their money. So that's
Right.
that's my ultimate aim. So I try not to bullshit around words, and try to fill in pages, give value to the reader. That's it. That's my ultimate aim. So I'm trying to do that.
Okay, wonderful. So, a question for all of you, and I think we will leave the audience with these last thoughts for them. Two parts to the question, and we'll start with you, Anita, before your connection conks again. I hope it doesn't. Uh, what are some of the key decisions that have helped you? Yeah, key, as in just two or three main major decisions you're happy about with respect to self-publishing, okay, as an indie author. And what are some of the things you want people to look out for, pitfalls that they must avoid?
One, I'm very happy about the fact that it gave me the ability to kind of believe in my own work. Because what happens is, with traditional publishing, you're still limited in sometimes, and you're sent the way of the publisher's vision and direction. Self-publishing allowed me to stick to my own vision, to really
Okay,
translate
right,
what I wanted to communicate, and the feedback has
right.
been awesome. So I think that's been the strongest and the biggest one. Second, it allows you a lot more creative freedom. In some ways, it allows you to play around more with your creativity, which is limited again in traditional, because what works and the market success and feedback becomes a parameter. What is not work? Marketing. I'm really bad at marketing and promotions, and I find that bookstores in general are much more closed to self-published authors. I've found it very challenging to crack the bookstore market,
The
to enter
bookstore.
it. Otherwise, you have to go. Distribution, right? Book distribution is a
Yes,
big challenge
yes.
for a self-published author. So I think that is something I really hope that something comes about, or there's some movement, something changes in that aspect. Because I'm finding
Right.
that very, very difficult. They're very close to self-published authors.
So I think they're very closed and very conditioned to the traditional model of taking it from large publishers and sending it out and distributing only those books, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
Because there are
Not very
some
open.
independent bookstores who have still been like, far more receptive and open and very encouraging. But the
Right.
traditional,
These are
bookstores are,
exceptions.
yeah, yeah. They're more exceptions than the rule. So, yeah.
Okay. Right. Ketan, what's your take?
Yeah, I love self-publishing. I think the best decision I took was to actually abandon the route of knocking on the door of self-publishing and finding an alternate route to the readers, which is through self-publishing. And another good decision I made was not to depend on cover designers and outside ecosystems to do stuff, but to try and do everything myself, which apart from being cheaper is a lot more fun and a lot of control, and it's very fast. So speed, when you are working with distributed model, the speed of getting things done can be abysmally slow. The thing I agree completely with Satyajit, Anita Satyajit, sorry, is marketing. While I'm a professional marketer, but I suck at marketing myself because it's very weird to beat your own drum and say
Yeah.
me all the time. It's very
You
embarrassing.
get all bashful about it, no?
Yeah, it's very embarrassing. Read my book. Like shit, I sound like an Amway publisher,
How can I hard
Amway
sell
seller or something. So that is, and so the way to do it is to do it professionally through proper paid advertising on Facebook, Amazon, Twitter, LinkedIn, whatever floats your boat. But that is a learning process. It's a bit of an expensive process. It's an iterative process, but it's something which can give very good returns. So I mean, Amazon paid out $250 million as royalties last year.
Right,
250
right.
million US dollars. So the rewards are there.
Mhm.
You just need to earn them.
Right, right.
I agree with.
Shalini,
Yeah, go
Yeah,
ahead.
so I think
I'll
already
come to you, Nandita. Yeah.
Yeah, go
they
ahead.
have covered already the points. So I think the pros are like the freedom, the speed, the control over your creative and the like production process, and of course the on the downside, yeah, exactly the distribution is a difficult thing. And for me,
Distribution.
the print book, yeah, most of the self-published
Mm.
authors have told me about the difficulty of getting a decent quality print book within a budget. So that is a difficult
Right.
part. And I think the also the society, like the literature community, the acceptance for self-published book. If you look at some of the major awards, self-published books are not accepted. So I don't
Yeah.
understand why that happens, because but some
Oy, Shalini.
Lost you, lost you. All right, Nandita, why don't you take over and then we can continue later?
Of
Yeah.
course. Sorry, Shalini. I was looking forward to your thoughts on that one too, because
Yes, yes, and so was I. Yes.
I was
Go on.
thinking about it, and it's I've built over
sorry,
time.
I lost my connection. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Oh, you're back. Okay. Yes, go
So
on. You were
that's
saying
that's
the
that's
last.
all. I almost done with that. So it's like the major I have major acceptance, the acceptance towards self-published authors as well as the distribution. So if both of them fall into place, I think we'll have a long we have a great future ahead.
Right, right, right. Okay. Yes,
I,
Nandita.
yeah, I was saying that the community that I have found of readers who not only like my work but also give me fantastic feedback, and I have
Mm.
moved away from trying to market, because that, like everybody said, it's the hardest thing you can do. And I just say, if you like my book, you'll come and find it, and that's something I have heard from people all the time, is that if you write good work, they will come and find you. So
Yeah.
if we are not finding the audience, then maybe we need to work better. But at the same time, I hear everyone and I agree with it. Marketing is difficult. Finding your space on the bookshelf is hard. In a bookstore, getting it out there, getting the word out there is hard. It's impossible to talk about yourself to your friends. And I don't push my books to my friends, and I was like, if you like it, here is the information. Ask me any question you want. I'm not going to push it for
Right.
you. And I'm not going to offer you a
Yeah.
discount because you're my friend, because it cost me the same amount of energy to make the book as it did a stranger. So
Of course, possibly more.
yeah,
Yeah.
far more. But it's that relationship building that ends up being the success story for me. In terms of over time, my books have gone to 30 countries. I don't have an agent. I don't have a publisher outside of like doing it all myself. I don't have a marketing team. It's all me, and I'm still sending books to countries I don't even know on the map, cities I don't know where they are. I have to look it up. So, it's really a matter of how we put our work out there and how much soul we put in it, and it shows. So, more power to self publishing, because there's a lot of good work out there.
All right. On that note, I think it's a wrap. Thank you so much, all of you. A wonderful spectrum of perspectives, and I think it was very. I think we could explore a few threads in a little bit of detail, given the little limited time. I think that's good. So, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure
Thank
being here.
you.
Pleasure
Thank
talking to
you,
all of you.
Ganesh. Thank you, everybody.
It was,
Bye.
it was a
Bye
great fun.
bye.
Bye.
As
Bye.
expected, it was an absolutely captivating session. We enjoyed the discussion thoroughly. Thank you, Anita Satyajit, Salini Vineeth, Ketan Joshi, Nandita Godbole, and Ganesh Vancheeswaran. Thank you for being our PILF guests. We thank our title sponsor, Vishwakarma Publications, Silver Partner, State Bank of India, Bronze Partner, Bajaj Allianz, and our bookstore partner, Crossword. We will meet again for the next session in 15 minutes at 1:45 p.m. You will not want to miss sharing your story.